During a recent interview with Stephen Colbert, AOC torched the failed sham Biden impeachment inquiry, but unfortunately, Republican Speaker of the House Mike Johnson and the Grand Inquisitor of the failed sham Biden impeachment inquiry, James Comer, just won't let it go, and they continue to publicly humiliate themselves. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bell before you go. I'd greatly appreciate it. All right, friends, believe it or not, the failed sham Biden impeachment inquiry is still technically active. They have not shut it down. They, of course, being the Republicans. Now, we've been over this. We've dedicated many videos to it because whether we like it or not, whether we find it substantive or not, and it's not, it is the foremost consistent political project of the Republican Party. It's all they've consistently done since they've had the majority in the House of Representatives since January 2023, other than get speakers after like 13 or 14 votes and then kick those speakers out and they get a new speaker after like 4 or 5 more votes and then threaten to kick that speaker out, right? Outside of all the infighting that they do because they're so stupid and dysfunctional and pathetic and contemptible. You should have total disdain for them. They're trying to impeach President Biden and have absolutely nothing to show for it. So, despite the fact that in recent videos we've talked about how James Comer, the Grand Inquisitor of this witch hunt, has signaled to his supporters, to his fundraisers that, hey, listen, we probably have to let this go, but we're going to recommend criminal referrals so that if Donald Trump wins the 2024 election, the Trump Department of Justice can ruthlessly prosecute the Biden crime family, although I thought prosecutions of political opponents were wrong. It's okay when Trump does it, I guess. Signaling that the impeachment inquiry was going to go away because they know they didn't have the votes. And yet it's still going on. And so AOC was interviewed by Stephen Colbert recently, and she pointed out the absurdity of some of the more recent developments of the failed sham Biden impeachment inquiry.
I mean, even let's just rewind a second. We just went through an impeachment attempt on the president of the United States that was started with a source that Republicans used that was in communication with Russian intelligence. So you have not just the bottom bench here, you have the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, Representative Comer, take quote unquote evidence and account from someone who was working with the Russian intelligence and tried to impeach and remove the president of the United States over it. This is serious.
How did they not know that, or did they know that this was connected to the Russians? Or did they not figure that out because they hadn't translated from the Cyrillic?
That, I think, is a very excellent question for Chairman Comer, because
he won't come on.
No, he would not. He doesn't do well answering questions. He complains. Comer, as we've discussed in previous videos, has whined repeatedly on Newsmax about Fox News because he says Fox News isn't friendly enough for him. He's like, what's going on with Steve Doocy? Steve Doocy's been compromised by the deep state and the Biden crime family and communist China. But it's been a couple weeks, and so Comer has found himself back on the Fox propaganda network, you know, emphasizing, listen, this investigation is serious. And you know, it's actually the Democrats who are conspiring and spreading disinformation and working with the mainstream media to thwart my efforts. We're going to play some clips of Comer. Brace yourselves.
Exactly. Dan Goldman and Jamie Raskin are in a race to see who the biggest hypocrite in Congress can be. Look, they know exactly what they've done with the Department of Justice in weaponizing it against conservatives and against their major political opposition. What Dan Goldman's trying to do is triangulate the issue, and that's what they do with everything. They take an issue and try to turn it around and collude with their friends in the mainstream media to create a disinformation campaign that was started by Russia, not by the Department of Justice or the deep state bureaucracies or the Democrat National Committee, but created by the Russian disinformation campaign, whoever that involves.
So all the references to, I mean, obviously he's whining about Democrats colluding with the mainstream. What, I don't even know what that means, that they go on mainstream media and refute your lies. You're the one who's whining again that the very network you're on isn't always friendly to you. But what they're talking about when referencing Russia, when AOC's talking about it, when Comer's talking about it. So there was a witness called Alexander Smirnov, somebody who was making allegations about the Bidens, Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, that they were being bribed by a Ukrainian energy/holding company. And then it turned out that guy was arrested for lying to the FBI about those very things. And then while he was being interrogated by the FBI, he said actually he was just regurgitating Russian disinformation from Russian intelligence. That's the context for this. That's why AOC and others are hammering Comer relentlessly for basically being a switchboard, a mouthpiece, a signal boost, a loudspeaker, effectively, for Vladimir Putin to try to destabilize the United States by hurting President Biden. Now, in this other clip I'm going to show you, that same guy, Smirnov, Comer says, listen, he was never a big deal. Except that's not true, and we have the receipts.
So the whole ordeal there with the FBI informant wasn't relevant to the investigation. It was one part that we investigated, but the Democrats and the intelligence community are colluding with the media to try to say that that was a key part of the investigation, and therefore the investigation needs to end.
That's the claim. That's the revisionist history that they're engaging in now, right? Well, this is what Comer had to say when Smirnov was suspected to be a credible source of information against President Biden.
Crucial piece of our investigation, and
pass that on again. One more time.
This is a very crucial piece of our investigation, and the reason that I think it's very credible is this claim was made years before anyone knew about these different shell companies.
So when Comer thought that the claim was valid, he's saying, listen, it's a crucial piece of the investigation, which we have to relentlessly pursue. Then, of course, it was debunked. Now he's saying it was never a crucial piece of the investigation. But that's because as an elected Republican, he's a pathological liar. He was also on Maria Bartiromo's show recently, damn it, proclaiming, listen, I know nobody takes it seriously, but this is a very serious investigation.
This is a very serious investigation. Joe Biden's in a lot of trouble. He needs to answer these questions. If he can't come in public and answer them, he needs to, at the very least, answer the questions in the letter.
So it's a very serious investigation, an investigation which doesn't have any popular support, an investigation which has produced no material facts, certainly no facts even hinting at an impeachable offense. That's why they keep constantly conflating Joe Biden with the Biden crime family, as if Hunter Biden committing a crime is somehow an impeachable offense for his father. Makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. But the other thing is, even though he has signaled repeatedly that he's now moving on from impeachment, that actually, as a matter of fact, the impeachment inquiry, it was actually 3D chess. We talked about this in a previous video. Comer wants to make it pretend that really the impeachment inquiry was never about impeachment. It was about, maximizing the Republicans' investigative tools in order to get the evidence needed. And if we can't go with impeachment, that's fine. We'll make a criminal referral. Well, now he's saying, well, actually, impeachment is still on the table.
Can go. What else can you do to get some accountability after all of this information that you say you dug up?
I think the two best options moving forward are obviously criminal referrals and then impeachment. Impeachment's still on the table.
Impeachment is still on the table. Impeachment's not on the table, folks. It's really not. They don't have the votes for it. But Comer's not alone. Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, Comer's boss, effectively, was recently interviewed by, I think it's Christian Broadcast or Christian News Network or something like that. And this is what he had to say about Comer's clown show of an impeachment effort.
We've done it in the very opposite way that the Democrats did. When they impeached President Trump twice, they did all of those attempts. It was openly partisan and political. I mean, they planned it before he even took office. And so we made the case very consistently, and I did myself, because I was on President Trump's impeachment defense team twice, that this was a charade, that it was a mockery of the process, that they had politicized impeachment, which I often argue is probably the heaviest power the House of Representatives holds in the Constitution next to the declaration of war. But what we've done is the opposite. It's a slow, methodical process through 3 committees of jurisdiction, trying to determine the real facts here and connect those dots. And what we found is alarming.
So I'll have you know that the investigation isn't over, right? But Comer, especially, was publicly saying that he would impeach Biden, that he wants to impeach Biden, that he would vote to impeach Biden as far back as August of last year. So it's not been a fact-finding mission. This had predetermined outcomes, whether Johnson wants to admit it or not, or at least or less predetermined conceptions, right? They assumed that Biden was guilty from the very beginning. They were not agnostic on the fact. And during that interview, he also suggested that impeachment was still on the table, even when the host said, well, listen, it seems like you don't have the votes. Well, we're going to continue to gather the evidence and then present the information to the House Republican Conference. And that's exactly what responsible leaders do. They don't have the votes. 18 Republicans were elected in districts that President Biden won. And even if they had the votes, which again, they don't, they only have a 1-seat majority anyway, this thing will die in the Senate. And by the way, impeachment efforts tend to benefit the impeached party, especially during election years. And this impeachment has less public support for it than either of Trump's impeachments. So, according to the polling data. So yeah, as I said, it doesn't seem that even though they're signaling that the impeachment effort is going to go away, it seems like they're just going to keep it on the back burner to bring it out when they think it's necessary, when they think it's important. I think it's important for you and me and everybody else to point out that this is the one consistent political project that Republicans have attempted with their use of political capital while being in the majority of the House of Representatives. And this is all they have to show for it. It's pathetic. It's definitive proof that the GOP is objectively inferior by far in all ways at governing, and they should accrue a political consequence for it in November. Let me know what you think in the comments.